And welcome back to the channel, everybody, and welcome back to a new video. And I'm going to dig a little deep here when it comes to what we could expect when it comes to the future of electric vehicles versus gas vehicles. Why I believe Elon is now our next president's best friend, yet he is all electric, all for electric cars. Tesla is obviously all electric. Yet our next president is saying he's going to put the kibosh on electric vehicles, or at the very least, the tax credits and all the crazy, let's call them by de facto mandates that we've been dealing with, and that many automakers expected to be in place for a very long time. And that this next 4 years, things may change drastically, to say the least. And when I show you some of these numbers, I think this could be the death of electric vehicles as we know them with normal run-of-the-mill automakers. And I think this will help Tesla continue to widen the gap on their market share, as well as have ridiculous, incredible profits. It's an American company, more power to them. I'm okay with that because it takes money away from the outsiders coming in trying to sell stuff in America for too much money. And I think no matter how we cut it, there's going to be a mad rush by the traditional automakers to get the hell out of the EV business. This could be interesting. This could be something that is downright historical in nature, depending on how far our next president is going to take this. And I'm not taking a position here. I'm not making this a political video. I'm just sharing with you why I believe some of the things that are going to happen, and the logic behind them, basically mathematically, and when it comes to just basic business. But this is stuff that I believe is way beyond even my pay grade as a barely high school graduate. So if you think I'm insane, you're welcome to tell me in the comment section below when I'm done with this. But if you really dig in and think about it, I think I'm gonna call this shot and where this is headed and what we can look forward to. Will we see gas engines come back in a big way? I believe so. And I believe so because if our next president does what he says he's going to do, they may have no choice. They may not be able to even continue building EVs, leaving everything in the hands of Tesla, maybe Rivian, maybe Lucid, but I doubt it. I don't think they can survive. It just is what it is. I don't think they can survive without the government support they've been getting. So I'm going to switch to my screen and just show you some things that I think are kind of shocking and will enlighten everyone. That was very interesting to me. But what started this video was the recent article on Mopar Insider and Reuters and all over the place where the Stellantis CEO says that he's going to, here's what it says, adapt to Trump-era market changes. And that, you can read a lot into that. But I can tell you, they're panicking at Stellantis going, wait a minute. This may be a challenge for us if we're not getting all the government support. And if the tax credits go away, that could be a huge problem as well, because these damn things are way overpriced as they are. And something no one wants to talk about is the depreciation is already bad with cars in general, but it's significantly worse, if not twice as bad or more, than traditional gas engine cars. The reasoning, you guys can guess what it is. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. We got gas cars still running 50 years later, 60 years later, still out there driving to Cars and Coffee on the weekends. And I don't see that happening with EVs and with technology advancements. It's an iPhone. It's a rolling iPhone that's going to be worth nothing when the next iPhone comes out. So let's go ahead and jump in and look at some crazy info. So this is the article, and you all can go read it. And it's enlightening a little bit, but no question, Tavares is being very clear that he's willing to adjust as necessary because the the concern here, and let's just level set on the potential elimination of the $7,500 EV tax credit that would impact the vast majority of people buying those cars that make an income that would allow them to take that tax credit. So if that goes away, if that's the first thing that goes away, immediately everyone is paying more for electric cars. Yet Tesla, who has already continued to drop their prices, I believe that really smart guy knew who was going to win the election and was planning for it and telegraphing his punch in his continuous price drops over the last couple of years, ensuring that he would be insulated against a catastrophic market drop if that tax credit did go away, meaning he could still be profitable, still be very profitable without these tax credits. More on that in a minute. As you read through this, it's more and more about what our next president is going to do, and it could be eliminating lots of subsidies, lots of government support. But what kind of government support have they been getting? And I will throw this out there. We got to wonder why in the hell Elon Musk of Tesla is so for this guy. So why is Elon Musk so cool with all these changes? Why is he on an airplane eating McDonald's with the Trump administration? I think I know why, and I think it's brilliant, and frankly, I'm all about it. It's all good with me. So let's just go ahead and acknowledge that under this new administration, there's likely going to be a massive shift in governmental support for the electric car agenda. I do believe that Trump, like Elon, do believe that there's plenty of room for both to exist. There's no question about that. It's more about pushing us all too hard to one or the other, and right now it's been all about pushing us almost punitively towards the other, towards the EVs. And many of us don't want them, would not work for us, and they're way too expensive, especially for what you get. Massive inconvenience and unnecessary adjustment of lifestyle that many people are not down for. So you can go read this article. It continues to talk about the changes and Stellantis' position with these changes. And they're, of course, saying, oh, we've been fine with the multi-energy platform. They're talking now about hybrids. They're, of course, accelerating the delivery of the inline 6 twin-turbo charger and moving that up by 5 months. All this has happened after the recent election, which makes sense. But how will this really impact Stellantis, Ford, General Motors, and others? Well, understanding the prior administration went all in on $15.5 billion to support a strong and just transition to electric vehicles, retooling existing plants, and rehiring existing workers. So does that ring a bell with what's been going on? The problem is while this was done, and this article came out, actually this is on energy.gov, the government website, August 13th, 2023, and since then even, the market has gotten worse, interest rates still suck, and car prices are still way too expensive, especially when it comes to electric vehicles. Except for the cheap stuff, the stuff that Ford makes and the stuff that Tesla makes, and maybe the Chevy low-end EVs and some of the stuff they're wanting to come out with. But are those prices profitable? Can the manufacturers make money? Well, here's the deal. No, they haven't been able to make money. They haven't been able to make money selling EVs even with the governmental support, with the tax credits. So with the massive amounts of money that the government's been investing, and you can go read this entire story from our government that explains all of the different billions, $2 billion in grants for up to $10 billion in loans to support automotive manufacturing, conversion projects to retain highly competitive jobs in these manufacturing facilities to push electric vehicles. Another notice of intent to make $3.5 billion in funding to expand domestic manufacturing of batteries for electric vehicles and the nation's grid. What happens if all this stuff gets pulled back, cut back? I mean, Elon's going to be on the government efficiency position. I'm got to imagine he's going to look back and say, I don't need your money to be profitable. And I will explain to you why in just a minute. He's figured out how to be profitable since 2021. As you go through here, it's more and more money, massive amounts of money, another $2 billion to spur conversion of long-standing facilities to manufacture electric vehicles and components supported by Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. I mean, what will happen with this? More grants. Projects selected for the funding must also contribute to the President's Justice 40 initiative, which aims to advance diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in America's workforce and ensure every community benefits from the transition to a clean energy future. Trump talks, everything he says is against this and the opposite of this. Again, no politics here. We just can say that one side says one thing, one side says another thing. I got to imagine this is going to be torn apart, shredded, and I don't know, a lot of it go away. Also making up $10 billion in loan authority for available applications on the Advanced Technology Vehicles Manufacturing Program. Listen, when you have this kind of money flying around, another $3.5 billion, this kind of money flying around, people are getting rich. CEOs are getting rich. What was it? $350 million? The CEO of Lucid is getting paid, and he continues to take money from the Saudis who sell gas, don't they? So from the Saudis. And why would they do that? Well, I'll get into that in a second. Why would they want to support an electric vehicle company? Even if that electric vehicle company was to lose money and sold lots of electric vehicles, why would they do that? Well, there's an opportunity that Elon has already figured out, but I don't think Lucid has any chance at that. Their cars are so incredibly expensive. So let's go ahead and look at why I think electric vehicles could die under this administration as we know it with most of the manufacturers. Because, according to the Boston Consulting Group, automakers lose around $6,000 on each electric vehicle they sell in the United States. This figure takes into account customer tax credits. That means with the customer tax credits, they cannot make money. Rivian loses $30,000 on every electric truck it sells. Lucid loses over $227,000 on each car it sells. Ford loses more than $100,000 on each EV it makes. It's actually more than that, I think. Some reasons for these losses include high capital costs, operations that aren't yet fully at scale, individual model risk, and competition to cut prices and attract new buyers. Hello, Tesla. And of course, this ends. AI brings it up and says, Tesla has been making a profit on EVs since 2021. So this is Tesla, all these guys picking a fight with Tesla who's coming from a profit standpoint. And one thing I've learned in business my whole career has been if you're losing money and your competitor's making money, they are way ahead of you and can outspend you until you go bankrupt. And I got to tell you, Elon's not messing around. He is a sharp business person, whether you like him or not, and he's going to make sure it's hard on them. But let me tell you, well, I'll get to this in a second. It's going to get good. Don't go anywhere. How about this? In the first quarter of 2024, with all these subsidies and tax credits, Ford lost with the Mach-E's, lost an average of $132,000 for each electric vehicle is sold. Could you imagine that? It's insane. It's killed their overall earnings. And other automakers, it says, across America, more than $6,000. Now, obviously, that's an average. Ford is taking steps to offset these losses, cutting orders with battery suppliers, slowing down production of electric vehicles, slashing costs from their EVs, slashing prices to remain competitive against Tesla. You're going to keep hearing Tesla. I've said this forever. They got a charging network. They've got proven product, a very popular product, and a cheap product. They've hit every single checkbox when it comes to anybody who's thinking about going EV. They would be almost crazy to go with any other vehicle. At this point, it's just making your life harder, and you're likely spending more money. despite the fact that somebody's going to comment down and say, but EV sales were up 86% through the first 3 months of the year. Yes, but let's go ahead and look at the manufacturer. But they're losing $132,000 per vehicle. So they're selling more. What do they got to do to get there? Well, they got to get to a place of scale, or they've got to figure out how to raise the prices, or the government has to give them more money. But this is with the government giving them money. So what happens now? Well, the government's not going to give them any money with the new administration, and they're going to lose even more money. And it would crater Ford. It would crater GM. It would create a situation. Here's GM's EV losses have narrowed, which is progress, right? From 3.3 billion with a B in 2022 to 2.5 billion in 2023. They think they can start making money in 2025. That expectation is assuming that there's still tax credits, there's still governmental support, there's still money coming from the government, cheap loans and grants to be able to retool facilities and come out with new models. What if that changes under the new administration? That's going to be devastating. I think GM at that point would scrap EVs and say, we're going to build gas engines. That's it. We're going to build gas engines. Which takes me to why Elon's hanging out with the president. Why Elon's so giddy about a president who's saying, I'm going to give you guys options. I'm going to stop the insanity with the EV forcing upon us. Well, why? Well, remember, Elon sells carbon credits to all the manufacturers in America. Last year, he made $1.79 billion from selling air. That's it, just air, carbon credits. Because all he makes is electric vehicles, which means he is, by definition, the top seller of carbon credits in the U.S. in 2023, and for sure now. Meaning, if all the automakers go back to making gas engines, yet CAFE standards, although being adjusted, still push for the automakers to have to buy carbon credits to be able to build these V8s, for example, or these gas engines, which I got to imagine there's going to be some kind of push and pull. Tesla still wins hands down in selling carbon credits, being the number one company that's doing it in America, and everyone at that point to be able to build all these things has to buy from them. Now, certainly, maybe they won't buy as much, but they're still going to be buying. Now, let's say Trump went all the way to the nth degree and said, nope, all that's out of the CAFE's gone, dead. But if you go back to CAFE standards back in the 80s and even the 90s, it was reasonable. If he rolls them back to just being reasonable for gas hogs, for large V8s, V12s, all these big engines, for them to be able to sell them, they'll still have to be buying carbon credits. But let's say he rolls it back completely. Where does Tesla win? Well, if everybody says, I can't afford to build EVs, Tesla can, and they can stay in business, which means he ends up owning the vast majority right now, around 50% of the market, and he's been losing some market share. He suddenly takes over 70% of the market in America. And with our new president, he stops, not tariffs, but he stops with extremely high tariffs, stops other EV companies from coming to America like has already been done with BYD. And if you think that's only a Trump thing, tariffs are, go look at whitehouse.gov. Biden's been tariffing the daylights out of these guys also. Everybody has. So the bottom line is, if Trump can stop the selling of EVs from other countries in America, it helps Tesla. If everybody goes back to selling gas engines and they have to now buy carbon credits from Tesla, then that 1.79 billion triples while everybody else just says screw it. And Trump continues to make, by taking away all the credits that Tesla doesn't even need, he'd be fine without them. It pretty much sends every automaker in America, the big ones, into a position where they cannot make money selling EVs at all. And they either leave the EV business or they make it such a small, insignificant part of their model and go back to selling tons and of gas engines, making Tesla number one, once again, they still are, but by a massive margin. in EV sales in America. And he's got the charging network to facilitate it, and he's dropped prices enough to where nobody can compete with them unless they were coming from China, which, as we see, Trump's already said, I'm going to make sure that can't happen by making the tariffs so big they'd have to sell the cars for $500,000 to Americans. And those of you that comment and say, but he's going to put tariffs on there and we're all just going to pay more. I don't know about you all, but if I can't afford something, I can't afford something. And if you look at what's happened with Stellantis and Dodge, nothing's sold. Everything's sitting on lots because the prices got too high. So no one can force us to walk in and pay too much for a car. So if you tariff something to a point that the price has to be so high that it can't be sold in America, then they have to either bring the manufacturing in America or they have to take it out completely, leaving a giant opportunity for companies in America. I'm not lobbying for either president. I'm just saying in this circumstance, the EV people could survive under one administration. Under another, it's highly possible that they can't. At least most can't. Maybe Lucid, because it keeps getting hundreds of millions of dollars reinvested. Maybe Rivian finds a way if I don't know how they can based on the amount of money they lose. But maybe smaller companies figure out how to do it. And the bottom line is we see gas engines back again. We see Tesla reigning supreme, and we have more Teslas selling, him selling more carbon credits, if that's still a thing after all this. And we get our Hemi back. And next thing you know, I'm riding around in a Hellcat again. And I don't know about y'all, but that kind of seems like a cool thing. But all politics aside, what do you think about what I just shared with you? Am I out of my mind? Am I going too far into the stratosphere with my thoughts and ideas? I think that this is going to be a crazy 4 years for us to watch to see what happens. And I'm all for it. I'm all for seeing it. I mean, I like some entertainment and I like gas engines. So let's see how this goes. But I'm not going to pick a fight with you on politics today. And if you do in my comments, just be respectful. I mean, you can say what you want to say, but my channel's, it's not a democracy. I can choose what I leave in the comment section. And I'm not looking for political vitriol. We're all Americans in the end. And no matter who you voted for, I still love you, man. I'd still have a beer with you. I'd have a drink with you. And frankly, none of these super rich cats care that much about all of us individually. Bottom line is, we got to stick together regardless of who is the president. And this is what we have. And this is what I think is going to happen. And that could mean, if you're in this for the Hemis, this could mean that some big stuff coming and some big changes coming this next 4 years. So with that, please like, subscribe, comment, call me crazy if you want, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.